In this video, I'm going to go through the biggest mistakes that I made while ultralight backpacking over the past 2 years. These mistakes seemed minor at first, but have followed me for a long time. My gear is a little high quality, so it seems like a waste to replace it. So until I have a need to actually replace my gear, I'm just going to stick with what I have. The biggest mistake I made was this big puffy boy. Quilts are already super expensive, so when I got this, I tried to cut corners by getting $850 down. That reduced the cost by $100. It was still like $350. This quilt takes up half the space in my backpack. It is outrageously big. This is my backpack, and this is how much room my quilt alone takes. On 5-day food carries, that means I have to be super careful about what food I bring. It has to be very caloric dense. That way I can actually fit 5 days worth of food into my backpack. It barely closes shut. And sometimes I even had to leave the top open just for a day so I could get the food all in there. It's not a good setup. By the time it gets to 3 days, it's much more manageable, everything fits in there nicely, but it feels very top heavy because again, this quilt takes up so much space. I'm constantly trying to crank the top of my backpack down to make everything more compressed and more manageable, but that's also damaged the top of my backpack. It's not meant to be used that way. I absolutely love this backpack, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the pairing of my sleeping quilt with my backpack didn't work for this trip. Had I gotten a 950 down sleeping quilt, or I had gotten a 55-liter backpack for my original quilt, this wouldn't have been a problem. It was the two paired together. This was a super expensive mistake to make, a $350 one. And now I'm left with the question, do I get a same 20-degree quilt with 950 down? Or do I go for a 30-degree quilt with 950? I don't really want to replace it because this is still a great quilt. It's just not good in my backpack. The second mistake I made was with this tent. It worked great for 4 weeks, and then on the 5th week, it was raining every single day, all day. It was absolutely horrible. This tent is known to have really bad condensation issues, which I accepted when I bought it. However, I forgot to account for monsoon season in Colorado, which was a really silly mistake for me to make. On the very last night of the Colorado Trail, my entire tent was soaked and everything inside of it, except for my quilt. I had 1 inch of wiggle room on both sides of me, and of course, I got my quilt pretty wet by my knees and by my feet, and I cried myself to sleep because it was so miserable. It sucked. This tent is great for dry weather, but the second it rains, it becomes a huge safety issue. And I would never recommend this tent to anyone unless you're from Arizona. Luckily, I only paid $250 for this mistake, which is a lot lower than other tents. Some people commented on my previous videos and recommended the Durston X-Mid Pro, which that's the tent I'm probably gonna get next. Another mistake I made was with my sleeping pad. I got the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite, and it's in the torso size, so it only comes up to about my butt. I watched a lot of Jupiter hikes videos, and I really liked the idea of limiting comfort. The problem was that I limited so much that when I looked back, I realized how much I was missing out on. This setup is great if I'm hiking long miles, but if I'm only hiking 5 miles or a day hike, this is not the pad to use. But to be honest, I think this pad is great for through hikes. It just isn't good for anything else. My next mistake was with the Gossamer Gear Thin Light pad. I'm starting to realize all my mistakes are with my sleep system. I wish I had bought this so much sooner than I did. This pad is amazing and it saves my air mattress from getting any punctures, which I used to get so many. I don't know why I didn't get this sooner. I have gotten really good at patching them though. It's like the buff of the sleep system. You can use this for a yoga mat, for stretching. You can use this to take a nap in the middle of the day or as a butt pad when you're taking a break. This thing is so good for a lot of different things. And then I thought it would be a good idea to cold soak for most of the Colorado Trail. I think out of 35 days, I only cooked a warm meal twice. The rest of the time was couscous, just couscous. I think I was inspired by Darwin to do this. And by the end of it, it was just raining and miserable and I had cold couscous for dinner. It was just the biggest slap in the face. It sucked. I was only eating it in the end because I knew I needed the calories and that it would suck even more if I didn't eat it. I tried eating couscous the other day on an overnighter and I am just scarred. I can't do it anymore. I think going forward, this is a minor mistake. I'm just gonna have more variety next time. Luckily, this is like zero cost to me, just my mental and sanity. Another thing I should have done is I should have bought more comfort food. Whenever we got to a trail town, I would always just go on autopilot and buy all the things that I knew would work rather than the things that I actually wanted. I always targeted food items that were very lightweight, and because I knew of a selected list, I would just buy those items every single time. It turned out to be good for my health, but not so great for my sanity. I wish I'd brought more warm meals, more trail mix, and more snacks in general. Along those lines, every single time we got to a trail town, I would just buy food that I needed for the week. I would always forget to buy food that I could share with other people. And, the trail is super nice. There's a great community. Everyone would be sharing food, and I would feel guilty taking it every single time, knowing I didn't have anything to give back. So it took me 2 or 3 resupplies to actually sink in that I had to buy some extra food to share. And of course, we have the infamous half toothbrush. So this is what I ended up using. It's just the top of a mechanical toothbrush. The problem was I started out with a disposable toothbrush I got from like an American Airlines flight, and it snapped within the first week. All that was left was this tiny bit here, which I had to carefully brush my teeth like that. Don't use disposable items for your spoons or toothbrush or whatever else. To be fair, that toothbrush was really lightweight though. If you like this video, then consider subscribing or leaving a comment.